In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be reviewing the match against Roma. We'll be previewing the upcoming games in the Champions League against Barcelona and the Serie A against Fiorentina. This week's Moratti, Moggi and Frog, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, only on SempreInter.com.
Per De Vrij, c'è la torre per Messina, l'ha presa! L'ha ripresa Messina! L'ha ripresa Messina! Gol! Il Toro! Il Toro! Il Toro! Il tiro! Samir! Bandanovic! La recupera Brozovic, andiamo in contropiede, la porta è vuota, tira, attenzione, e gol!
Benvenuti, bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host Nima, Tavallaey, wishing you all back to the pod which focuses entirely on the Capolista, the league leaders of the Serie A, who extended their lead at the top rather unexpectedly, one could say, after Inter drew against Roma and Juve lost against Juventus. Juventus lost against Lazio, I should say. But we'll get into all of that. But let's first introduce to my panelists. We're joined by the SempreInter.com preview writer, Mr. Mohamed Nassar. How are you doing, Mo?
I'm doing all right. Glad to be here and looking forward to breaking this down.
Mystic Mo, indeed. I forgot what you said. We all said a draw, did we? Or did you say that we were going to win? I can't remember.
As a matter of fact, I'm the only one who mystically predicted that Inter were going to win. So, there you have it.
I still like Mystic Mo, though. It was a good nickname. It was fun while it lasted. Right. We are also joined by our good friend, Mr. Eduardo Dalmonte, who was with us last week, and he's back 2 weeks in a row. I don't think this has happened since Moses parted the Red Sea.
Oh my God! And I'm reading this book about Jesus as well. That novel, I've got it. But basically, it's the story of Jesus, but told from the perspective of 4 other people, and he does not come off well. It's such a good read, actually. Oh my God! Nah.
So people go. It's like a Mean Girls version of the Bible. That's interesting.
It's gospel, something like that. It's this, you know what I mean? Even if you are religious, it's interesting.
Okay. Well, we're also joined by our good friend, Mr. Will Beckman, who used to write for Serpezza Madonnina. And he used to write for SempreInter. Now he's partly at the Daily Mail. He's a media personality, London media personality, Mr. Will Beckman.
Oh, this again.
This will never get old.
I have not been reading anything, but I have been enjoying the extra point that we have at the top of the table. So happy Più Due, everyone.
Amen. Let's get into that. The Roma game. Going into this, I was very worried, as I said last week, because I think that Roma are an excellent team, and they have hurt a lot of teams that they've played. They're very solid at the back, and they are very good when going forward. However, Inter with Borja Valero and Vecino was hardly filling Inter fans with confidence going into this. But instead, what we were treated to was a match where I think it was Antonio Conte's absolutely best performance as an Inter manager. He completely neutralized Roma. And they only had one dangerous shot on goal. Other than that, Inter were unlucky or were poor finishing was the reason why Inter didn't win. With Borja Valero, Vecino, and Brozovic in midfield, I'm so impressed. I have to say, this is for me. I'm in awe of what Conte did in that game against Roma. What do you think about? Do you agree with me there, Mo?
I'm in awe with what Borja Valero did. The guy. Look. So Conte is impressive. Of course, he maximizes the juice out of previously declared dead players, and that's his MO. But Borja Valero is beyond dead. He's a mummy, So seeing him do what he did in the midfield yesterday or the day before yesterday was very impressive. And I think we need to give credit where credit is due. and we've spoken about Borja in terms of him being a great personality in the locker room, and we've spoken about him being, a decent passer. He controls the ball well, etc. But being able to put that level of physical output in such a critical game for however long he did was, for me, the standout marker. And I get what you're saying. Like, credit needs to go to Conte for being able to get that out. But it's up to the player as well to do what they need to do in training, in physical training, and strength and fitness and conditioning, to be able to, with the best of intentions, being able to follow the coach's instructions. So I think, like you've alluded to, the fact that we were able to quite unluckily draw the game while bossing and the very attacking threats of Roma is down to a very able makeshift midfield, not least impressive of which was Valero for me.
I agree with that 100%. I think Borja Valero's attitude and approach is just commendable and admirable, because he goes into that game. He's going to struggle with the pace. He's going to struggle with the stamina, but he works his socks off and eventually gets into a rhythm and starts almost overperforming and giving 110%. It was really impressive to see. But again, that's a professional attitude, and that's something that maybe that we've had problems with at Inter before. But with Conte, that is the level it's at, and that's exactly where it should be. I agree with you on that, but I still can't get over how incredibly impressive Antonio Conte neutralized Fonseca's midfield with Diawara, Veretout, Zaniolo, and Pellegrini. I still can't get over how incredibly impressive it was. What did you take away from the game, Will?
Well, a point, which is better than nothing when you can't win, as Diego Godin said in his post-match interview. But I took away encouragement. I took away a bit of surprise that some fans thought that performance was worthy of some boos. I'm sure most of us agree with Conte that was rather unnecessary. But yeah, I feared that game, like I think most of you did last week. I've been a bit blindsided by Roma, actually, because the last time I saw them was a long time ago, and they looked like a bit. I thought they were going to take a long time to come together under this new manager Fonseca. But I saw them a couple of weeks ago, and they were incredibly impressive against Başakşehir in the Europa League. So, yeah, this was a tough match. They've kind of had their own injury crisis of their own, and that's now over. And we're now having ours. So it wasn't the ideal time to get this match. But I think, given the resources available, I don't think it was possible to ask for much more. If we look at the chances created and indeed wasted, this was a game that could easily have been won. For all Roma's possession in the first half, Mirante pulled off a series of incredible saves. So I find it difficult really to criticise the performance. And I would be saying exactly the same thing if Juventus had won their match and overtaken Inter, because I do feel like sometimes there's a tendency to almost reevaluate the Inter's performance based on what someone else has done. The performance would have been exactly the same even if we were second in the league while we were recording this podcast. But yeah, I'm very positive overall. Roma are a serious team. I think they'll probably get fourth spot. And given that it's the first match in a series of tough matches, it was important not to lose it. The point looks even better given that Juventus didn't win. And I have very little negative to say, actually. I mean, Roma had control in midfield, as it was always going to be, but I was impressed in a moderate way, I should say. Obviously, it wasn't amazing, but
I love. I come here and hype everything up, and Will just comes in and
you said. Well, I'm the yin to your yang, so
Indeed you are.
Yeah.
Indeed you are. Ed, so what are you? What are you two yin and yang over here? And what do you take away from this game, or what impressed you the most with Inter, and what were you not so happy with?
I'm generally very happy because you didn't concede a goal. Roma really didn't do anything. I think at the end of the game, Mancini came out and said, like, but we controlled the ball for the first half now. And I was just like, oh, really? Is this La Liga or something? like where like, you know, time of possession almost counts more than like goal. Cosa vuoi da me? Non avete fatto niente, cioè adesso figa. Moreover, so no, I'm generally very impressed, and as you guys said, you know, the cupboard was really there, and we just were able to string together a very good performance. The only weakness I think really here was finishing, and you know that was the obvious one because Lukaku had a really good chance that went begging. I think when that wonderful ball is crossed into late on to Lautaro, that actually looks like Mancini has got it, but I think actually Lautaro misses it first. Then there are obviously two stunning saves from Morante as well. I mean, obviously one of them got Lukaku and completely hypnotized him. So I guess if you'd been able to at least squeeze in a goal there, you would have said this was Conte's masterpiece. This defense leaked like a sieve, and now all of a sudden you're able to completely neutralize Roma. I mean, obviously Dzeko wasn't in great shape, but they just really had nothing.
And let's be honest. Let's be honest too. Mirante. I mean, some of those saves he pulled out were simply fantastic. I remember I was speaking to some people. I was speaking to John Solano, who I do the Serie A show with, and I told him that, you know, for a game like this, Mirante is not that much of a. Over a season, obviously, Paul Lopez is a better goalkeeper, and losing him for a long period of time is a severe weak. You know, it weakens your team. But for just one game like this, Mirante can deliver, and he's always done that. And he's always, even when he was younger and a starting goalkeeper, he was a very good goalkeeper. So I was not surprised that. So I didn't see it as a big difference that Mirante came in, but he pulled some saves that were simply sensational.
When I read that Paul Lopez was injured, I knew we were jinxed in front of goal. That's how it always goes, you know.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Standing keeper in performing well at San Siro, shocker.
Well, he channeled his inner consigli, who always turns out.
God, that's a good comparison. They're two of those keepers that can look like a superstar on their day, but they always have the papera in them just around the corner. That's kind of probably why they've not reached certain levels during their careers. Because if you look at him on Friday evening, there was nothing that was, you couldn't ask much more of him in terms of being a shot stopper, but. I suppose it's doing that consistently. But yeah, I think the fact that we're talking about that again just underlines the fact that this was a good performance, and you should not be overreacting to a goalless draw against Roma. I mean, if you can't draw against Roma, then when can you draw? I mean,
I was just going to say, I'm glad you brought that up, because some people were booing Inter, which I think is
which is unacceptable, really.
That pissed me off, because then you don't know what football is. You don't understand what football is. If you boo Inter after a goalless draw against Roma, you don't understand football. You don't know what football is.
With that midfield, I mean, with that run of form, you know, Conte went for them in the post match, and he was right to. You know,
yes, I agree. I agreed 100% with him. It's like, what are you doing? To me, it makes no sense. It's just you don't understand football. You know, don't. You know, stick to something else. Go watch wrestling or something. I don't know, but don't stay away from football, because this Inter does not deserve to be booed. It's
how many times did Roma get through to Handanovic? Once. First half with Zaniolo. Is that it?
Once.
Like,
that is it.
the clean sheet was perfectly logical. It's the other zero that was maybe down to not taking your chances or moments. You know, it's always tempting to go to just take the result and analyze everything from there. But you know, that could have been a win very easily. I mean, that's not to say that Inter dominated the match, but you know,
no,
calma.
Absolutely, yes, no, sanity, please. Yes. Please live on this planet. Ed, you want to say something?
Well, yeah, no, I just completely agree with you guys. And plus, if I had to be really honest, among Italian fans, like people who born and raised in Italy, what have you, I always found Roma fans actually quite flaky. If you go to the Olimpico and things aren't turning right, they're empty. You know what I mean? People can really bail. I always thought Inter fans, we always boast about the fact that we get, highest attendance in Serie A, but apparently there are some douchebags in there as well. I mean, why the hell would you boo this team? The context is super important. We're doing really well this season as well. A game like this is a perfectly legitimate result. I mean, yeah, the game wasn't super exciting. I personally didn't find it very exciting to watch. You had to really watch the players and how they were moving around to be able to understand the complexities of it. But still, it was fine, wasn't it? I mean,
It was a really good performance. We neutralized a really strong team. Defensively, Inter were sound, and going forward, they were unlucky not to score. I've seen some people say that it was, that Lautaro and Lukaku are a great attacking duo, and they work really well. But they both kind of lack that killer instinct in terms of they converting chances. I'm not sure I agree with that. I think every striker in the world.
Look at Lautaro's record
Yeah,
this season.
yeah, exactly.
How many
I
times he
know.
scored with his first shot on target?
Yeah, I don't. I think that's again people. There are hot takes, and then there are steaming hot takes. That to me is one of the king of a hot take, because that makes no sense. Everyone, it's not, you're going to miss chances, and some days it's just not going to work. And Inter were unlucky that it was against Roma, so that happened. I mean, I'd rather draw against Roma than draw against Verona or Lecce or Brescia or any of those teams that we should be beating.
This is not; these aren't silly drop points. These are not 2 points that are going to cost into the league. That's a result that can happen. It's not a drama. I think the booing was probably because a lot of the fans in the stadium were visualizing the contro sorpasso from Juventus, which obviously never materialized in the end. I think that's probably where it was coming from. Because what can you ask from this team? What more could you ask? You could have asked that they didn't mess up against Slavia Prague in the first Champions League match, and that they didn't disappear against Dortmund in Germany. But that aside, like what do you want?
What do you
remember
want?
what we were saying about this team in September and August? We didn't think that even with everyone fit, it was ready to compete for the Scudetto, and
exactly.
we've lost. The three of our six midfielders. Alexis Sanchez isn't there. We have two strikers, albeit two very good strikers. There've been injuries out wide. It's I don't want to say it's miraculous, but it is remarkable what he's done. It's remarkable the way that Conte has just changed everyone's expectations in the space of 3 months. And in a way, you could say that the boos on Friday evening are the biggest compliment you could give to him for what he's done so far, because everyone is suddenly taking Inter seriously as this title contender, and it shouldn't be taken for granted that this was a team that were 25 points off Juventus last year, and suddenly we're 20 points clear of Napoli. We're 2 points clear of Juventus. This is not normal what's happening, and we shouldn't forget that this is something remarkable that's taking place.
Yes, agree 100%. Mr. Positivity, what do you say over there to this ridiculous negativity?
I say that it's time for me to temper your guys' positivity. Look, I agree with everything that's said. We can't ask for much more, etc., etc. But also, I'm left with this feeling. I hate this getting a point ahead of the competition just because the competition drew or lost in that case with Juventus. It's very reminiscent of the first season with Spalletti, where we were always dependent on Lazio kind of drawing and keeping us in the game and keeping us in the running for the Champions League spot. I understand we've said clearly that we're not Scudetto contenders, etc. But celebrating the fact that we're the Capolista because Juventus lost is not what I wanted.
Are we celebrating it sincerely? I'm not. Have you seen that? I've seen people happy that Juventus have lost, and in that sense, it's very very good for our morale that Juventus played after. Because if Juventus had lost and then we had the opportunity to go to 4 points clear and we'd drawn, it'd probably be feeling very different at the moment.
That's true.
So I think that the fact that it came in this order means that there's a lot more positivity around. But I don't think that there's from supporters there's any kind of sense of getting carried away.
I agree with what you're saying, Will. But what I mean is, when judged in isolation, I think that the match, in terms of performance, it was fantastic. We couldn't have asked for much more, except for a result. But what I was left with was the fact that the result was there. And I think that Lukaku and Lautaro are probably the hottest in form striking duo in Europe at the moment. But unfortunately, on the night, it was due to whatever, the flu or just an off night, or like Godin said, like you alluded to earlier, whatever it was. But we have to be also aware of the fact that this victory was in our hands, and it was only due to us, like our hands. Like it was in Inter's hands, and it was only due to Inter's poor finishing that the victory did not. Like everyone else on the field performed, and the fact that the ball did not go into Roma's net due to misfortune, due to whatever, is the reason why the result didn't happen. And some people are okay to feel a bit disappointed with that. And I'm not condoning the boos. I don't think this was a boo-worthy performance at all. But I'm saying that while everything was great, we're hopefully at the stage in our project as Inter fans, as a squad, where results start really mattering. It's not just the performance, and it's just not like, oh wow, we did very well, but third place is still no. I mean, we're now, and like you said, Will, this is a testament to Conte's work and a compliment to what has been achieved in the 3 or 4 months, in the short 3 or 4 months that have in which he's been in charge. But yeah, I think the team, the ambition, the squad, the whole project is at a point where a game like this we should be able to expect more. And I would have been very happy with a draw. Like I wouldn't be as let's say I don't want to say bitter, but melancholy or whatever, bittersweet, if the draw had come, through a last-minute equalizer and Roma were dominant, and then you'd say, Roma played better on the day and we managed to scrape a draw, and so be it, que sera, and we'll live to fight another day. But we were dominant. We were dominant. We weren't dominant in terms of possession, but we were dominant in terms of chances. We were dominant, and all things were there for Inter to win the game, and it's just a matter of not being able to take it across the line. That's a gripe that I think is a legitimate one. And if we paper over that gripe, then maybe we're just giving the team excuses and coddling them as we used to do in the last 4 or 5 seasons, where now they're mature enough for us to be able to put that pressure on them as fans.
Have we got Antonio Conte on the line here? I tell you what, I think this is exactly what he would have been saying to his players in the dressing room full time. Because let's make this clear: Conte will be the first man to be annoyed about this draw. He is this insatiable manager who will be desperately disappointed to have not made this win, especially given the performance. But so I think it's correct that the players and Conte think like this, and I'd be disappointed if they were saying the same things as we're saying. But the fact is, we're not in the dressing room, and they're probably not listening to us, so we can probably get away with it.
I agree. I'm just, and again, like let me say this clearly. I'm only saying this as a counterpoint to you three's.
It's good.
If Nima had taken my position earlier, I probably would have taken Nima's position, or you or Ed. But
devil's advocate, straight from
exactly.
Dubai.
I think what I mean to say is that I think it's a legitimate, not concern, but a legitimate viewpoint that needs to be voiced. Like, I agree completely with everything that you guys are saying. The performance was fantastic. It's unfortunate, etc. But I also think that simultaneously the team has grown so much and developed so much, and we are, as fans and as a project, we are I don't know, due or whatever to expect a bit more, or to be a bit disappointed when the result doesn't come, albeit the performance being as great as you would want it to be considering the circumstances.
Well, as you alluded to there, Mo, it is crunch time because now the matches matter. And one game that really matters, or the two upcoming games that will really matter, are the games first against Barcelona in the Champions League, where Barcelona could be resting up to 9 players that played this weekend, including Lionel Messi. And against an Inter who have everything to play for, and Barca who have nothing to play for. I would like to take what you said To me, this match. I want to see Inter approach this game with their heads, because Barcelona missing 9 first-team players. It's Barcelona. They have really good replacements on that bench, and if Inter go into this match like the way they did under Spalletti against the PSV at home, a kind of frantic, panicked start to the game, they're going to get hammered by this Barcelona, because that is the quality that they have. But if Inter come with a measured, intelligent, concentrated, focused approach, I think Inter could win easily 2-3-0. And because Barcelona, it does not matter for Barca. They've already won the group. They have literally nothing to play for. Do you agree with that, Ed?
Yeah, generally I do, and I do really like what Mo was saying, because my dad pointed out that Conte is always using the word step in his interviews. He's always like, "Sì, insomma, bisogna fare il prossimo step," which is just such Conte language. And yeah, I think he's already got that big club mentality. And I'm kind of expecting to come up with, remember that story when he was at Juve and they had to play Cagliari, and I think beating Cagliari when the season was already over, the title was, sewn up, but beating Cagliari would have allowed him to go for 100 points, I think. And he basically invented...
to break the 100-point record, yeah.
And he basically, managed to get Buffon to play along with him, and Buffon was supposed to complain about bonuses or something, and Conte would just, explode at Buffon. And he did that just to drive the players. I'm expecting him to come up with some sort of little
He'll
trick.
be doing something like that this week, you would have thought. Especially after we went top. He's good at just keeping the tension high. He'll find a way. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. The thing about Barca is, you never underestimate these guys, and in fact, actually, they'll be a bit more rested. But there are two things to say. Number one, Inter are the kind of unlucky team. Considering Griezmann's bad season, I bet he scored against us. You almost want to kind of bet if he's going to score against anyone, it's going to be against us. I look at Barca's squad, and I'm not massively impressed with them as of yet. So it's not. You obviously got to keep your heads about you and what have you, but I mean, this could be a lot worse. Epic Barca teams of the Guardiola era, I think their second team would have been a lot scarier.
Where are you on this, Mo?
I think so. I think under any other manager, I think I would have been very worried about the signs and the complacency and the fact that you think Inter would be playing down to Barca's expectations or inferred expectations. But I think there's none of that nonsense, and I'm kind of grateful that the draw happened on the weekend. I think I'm also kind of glad, silver linings and all, but that the Lautaro-Lukaku partnership got tempered a bit so that they're forced to, improve and work together and reflect. You can't have it your way every time. So I think in the grand scheme of things, like you guys said, I think that Conte is the kind of manager who's going to be able to make sure that at least mentally and attitude-wise, that the guys step onto the pitch with the right mindset, with the right preparations, with the right attitude, to be able to take away all 3 points, regardless of whatever starting 11 Barca put on the field. And I think the stronger that the Barca is, the more motivated Inter will be. So I have no fear of Barca per se, as funny as that may sound. I think that the Inter squad, manager, attitude, morale, etc., has all the tools necessary to be able to take these 3 points. It's just a matter of making sure that everything gels on the day. I really hope we get Gagliardini back. I think even if he doesn't start, just having that extra. I hope Candreva isn't out, and I hope that we get Gagliardini back. I think whether or not they play or etc., just making sure that Conte has that tool in his arsenal in order to map the different options that he has across the 90 minutes is quite important. But I'm positive, surprisingly.
I don't think Gagliardini will be back, unfortunately.
No, I don't think so.
It looked as if he was going to miss both of these matches.
If I were to look into the crystal, if I were to be Mystic Mo, then I would say that I expect Asamoah to play in the middle of the park instead of Borja. depending on how, it depends, because Asamoah likes to play in that position, and he's not really that defensive minded. He's got great movement between the lines, and he's a good passer. So I think that against Barcelona, when you need someone to kind of be able to match them in terms of pressure, I don't think Borja Valero has that in him to do that twice in 3 days. I honestly don't. Even though I absolutely respect and admire his attitude and professionalism, I don't think he has that in him. For me, I expect to see a midfield of Vecino, Asamoah, and Brozovic to start against Barcelona, and I think that's a really good. That's the best midfield to start, because that is a midfield that has legs in it. It runs a lot. Brozovic runs more than any human on earth. That plays football, and Vecino is also a player that runs a lot, and Asamoah, we know, runs a lot. And I think when you want to play against the Barcelona that is depleted, if you will, because of not because of injuries, but because they have nothing to play for, I think you have to kind of be able to pressure them, but also be able to have safe passers, and also have players that have the stamina and durability that Borja Valero, I think, lacks. What do you think about that, Will? You agree?
Well, I think first and foremost, it would be important to have Asamoah anyway in some capacity, because he's one of the few players that he's used to these matches, and I think we in that second half in Germany, he would have been useful because he's one of these players that is used to coping in big European matches. He played a lot of them for Juventus, so I expect him to play if indeed he's ready. Conte also was very sort of he talked up Asamoah's qualities as a midfielder when he was asked about it recently. He reminded everyone that he was born as a central midfielder, and he played him in midfield at Juventus. So I don't think he'd have any second thoughts about doing that. There is also quite obviously a question mark about the fact that he hasn't been there for a while. He's got used to going up and down the wing now. But yeah, given the other options, I don't think there's much wrong with sticking him back in, even if he hasn't been there in a while. Because, as you said, Borja is interesting on Borja. I want to say something about Borja in a minute that I heard a couple of weeks ago, but I do agree that he probably is not going to be able to produce two high-level performances against two high-level opponents in the space of 3 or 4 days. Vecino and Brozovic, you expect would be given to start, I think it's probably the best option we've got. Interesting on Borja, I remember that after the match against Slavia Prague, which was his first performance of the season, which sort of surprised a lot of supporters for how well he played. I remember Paolo Condò was saying that on Sky Italia that he'd been speaking to one of his former teammates, Massimo Ambrosini. Apparently, Borja told Ambrosini that he's had the best pre-season he's ever had, and he's running like he's never run before. So he's clearly, despite the fact that he's not played, he is in better shape than he's been maybe for years, because of the way that Conte has conditioned him. So that's a pleasant surprise, and it's good to see him contributing more than perhaps we would have anticipated. I remember last year in particular, whenever he was called upon, he got a lot of grief because he was seen to be slow and a bit cumbersome. So it's good that he's there, but in this particular match, I don't know if he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be in the starting 11, as we say.
No, I don't think so either. Well, it's prediction time then. I've already said it. I think Inter will win 2-0. I think Lautaro and Lukaku will score. Lula, as our good friend Patrick Kendrick named them as. What about you, Mo? Where are you? Prediction goal scorers.
I'm at an Inter win. I reckon it's. I think we're not going to keep a clean sheet, so maybe a 2-1. And let's give Lautaro a brace. No Lukaku goal, maybe 2 assists.
Yeah. Will?
Yeah, I think we're going to do it. I don't know if I expect us to do it, but I back Conte in these matches. Plus, Barcelona in Europe these days I don't remember the last time they put in a good performance away from home in Europe. So I expect this to be an Inter-heavy match and hopefully a win. 1-0. Lautaro Martinez, I hope. Although if he does that, then that'll probably increase all these Barcelona rumours that have been circulating in the last few weeks if he does that against Barca. But we'll cross that bridge when we have to come to it. I'll say 1-0.
Lautaro.
Yeah.
Ed, goal scorers prediction.
There'll be some panicky moments. I think generally speaking, Barcelona on the road, however, they can be overwhelmed by a team that really like ratchets up the intensity. And I think back to when Roma knocked them out of the Champions League 2 or 3 seasons ago, that kind of performance, that's just going to bowl them over. And Valverde really doesn't seem to have either improved how they play or how they handle those situations. That said, I think Griezmann will score against us. So as you guys call it, Nula, or you can make it in goal or whatever you want to. And I think Griezmann for them, unfortunately.
There is another match that
another
match that comes to mind that's maybe more relevant, which is when Conte took his Chelsea side against Barcelona in the last 16 a couple of years ago. The match at Stamford Bridge. I mean, they drew the game, but he was all over Valverde that evening. They were 1-0 up. They hit the post. They were creating chances left, right, and centre. So I think Barca will look flaky and made to look a bit ordinary, because that's what they do in Europe. I don't remember the last time they played well. They could have lost to Slavia Prague. They got battered by Dortmund in the first match, and that's when they had a lot more to play for than they do on Tuesday. Last year, obviously Anfield happened. The year before, Rome happened. They're not a good side away from home. So I think this is absolutely a winnable game. It's whether we have the mental fortitude to push it through on the night.
Agreed. Right. On a few days later after that, it's away to Florence and Fiorentina, a match that Inter historically have struggled at. This is different. This is a Fiorentina that are coached by a Vincenzo Montella who is struggling a lot, and an owner, Rocco Commisso, who is furious that this team is not winning, because it is a good team and it should be winning, and they shouldn't be where they are. They have not taken points when they should have, and they now they're not playing well and they're losing. So there's even talk that Montella's a dead man walking, and Gennaro Gattuso coming in, or Luciano Spalletti coming to take over Fiorentina, which I think would be the most amazing thing that could happen to Fiorentina. Although I don't see Lucky Luciano coming in the middle of the season. I think he's more of a he wants
his money from Inter, I think.
Yes, he does.
He
He's
ain't
really angry.
He ain't reaching any agreement with Inter after what happened with Milan. No.
No way. He's not going. Which is a shame, because he is from Florence and he's from Tuscany and
Fiorentina fan, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it would be very nice, and also the fact that Commisso and him are such a duo. I mean, talk about primetime show. Anyway, it's a Fiorentina with Federico Chiesa. I think Ribery is going to be out for that game due to an injury. Chiesa will be in that game, and he always causes Inter troubles. I'm not worried going into this game, because I think that I think Conte is precisely his form as a coach, reading games, is really high, and his confidence is high, and he's got the players mentally where he wants them to be, and therefore I think that Fiorentina being a little bit in that position and under pressure gives Conte more maneuver room to play like they did against Roma, in the sense that defend deeper, give them the ball, and then wait like a cobra almost, pick your moment to attack and then hurt them. Only this time, obviously, you have to score the chances you create. I think that Inter this is a game that I expect Inter to win rather comfortably, to be honest. Am I being too over optimistic here, Mo?
No, I think by and large you're pretty right. I think the only you know how I always like to predict the second match in a sequence of matches depending on the first result, and I think in this particular instance it's not very important. I think if unfortunately we lose against Barca, then Inter are going to be frothing at the mouth and like looking for revenge, and poor Fiorentina are going to get blown out of the water. If Inter win and qualify from the group, I think the euphoria will be enough to be able to carry the team forward despite the injuries and the depleted midfield. I think the only risk would be if Inter somehow miraculously have a superb one for the ages win against Barcelona, where Barca get blown out of the water, and then there might be an adrenaline dump, and then Fiorentina might be a trap. But I think in Mystic Mo's crystal ball, I think in the majority of instances, I think this is probably like you very correctly analyzed, the most Conte of matches, where he's just going to outmaneuver and the team is out squad and outplay Fiorentina. I'm not too concerned. However, if Inter do an amazing performance against Barca midweek, then maybe I'll pull back my optimism just a bit. But otherwise, I think it's just a straightforward win. I think, like you've rightly said, Montella is a possible dead man walking, and just it's not a good thing going on in Florence at the moment.
Will, what are your thoughts going into the Viola game?
Well, I think Mo makes a very good point about how it's difficult to gauge this match before knowing what happens against Barcelona, because that match will have a very big impact one way or the other, because either way we're going to have the first definitive verdict of Conte's season. So whether Inter go through or go out, that's going to affect the emotional tone of this match. So I agree that a massive demolition job on Barcelona could potentially lead to a bit of subconscious relaxation. First thing I would like to say about this match is that I hope Rosario Obiso is not refereeing it. I'm sure we all remember what happened last year with this particular match. I think in fact, when you were talking a few minutes ago, I was just looking at this fixture on the fixture list, and I was becoming angry again about what happened in the 100th minute or whatever it was in February. But let's please not open that door again. It is a game that Inter should win, but Fiorentina have lost 4 in a row. It's always dodgy when you encounter a team that are not pulling their weight and need a big performance. I don't know. It's not a game I feel easy about. It's a game I would be surprised if we didn't win, but I don't know. The Frankie's always a tough one. They tend to step up against these teams at home. They don't always necessarily win them, but they do manage to be a nuisance in some way or another. If Ribéry is back, then that's one thing. Obviously, if he's not, then that's another. We'll have to see if he recovers in time. But Chiesa is dangerous, especially if you give him space. It's an awkward match, but if there's one man who will be motivated to win on that pitch, it's Antonio Conte, because I think he probably experienced one of the blackest days of his coaching career, the Frankie, a few years ago, when Juventus were 2-0 up and lost 4-2 to a Giuseppe Rossi inspired side. So he'll probably just walk out in the evening, and all those memories will come flooding back, and that'll give him a little extra oomph for his pre-match team talk. So I don't think we'll be undercooked for this match.
But one player we know in Fiorentina who will have an absolutely fantastic game, aside from
the new Roberto Carlos,
Dalberto Carlos, as we call him in Florence. No, but seriously, he's been really, really good. He's been fantastic. He's been probably one of the, if not the best, and one of the 2 best left backs of the Serie A. He's been absolutely extraordinary, and I think he will definitely play really well, because I think he wants to show Inter that they made a mistake by letting him go. So he'll have a good game. Chiesa will have a good game, which means that that Fiorentina's threat will come from the wings, which means that Inter have to be have to pay attention. Can't do what Inter have done against Spal or Sassuolo and other games where they just turn off, because that will really hurt Inter. I think Fiorentina can hurt most teams. They play some really good football. That 3-5-2, when it works for them, is gorgeous. They've just not been able to convert their chances.
They've been derailed by this Chiesa issue as well, haven't they? Because he sort of took himself out of the spotlight a couple of weeks ago with essentially saying he wasn't ready to play, and Montella didn't really cover that up in public. So he's not happy, and they need him back. They need him back and happy to be a good side. So if he's engaged like he should be, then they're a very different proposition to the one that we're playing a few weeks ago, I think.
Indeed, and also we should remember that there is talk now of Matteo Politano going to Florence in exchange for Federico Chiesa. It's seriously being discussed in January, and I know that Mo and I will have a debate about this.
I will comment about this.
He's a fantastic player. But no, we'll have this debate another time. But it is actually talk of that happening. Obviously, much to Politano. Politano obviously doesn't want to go, but if Chiesa accepts Inter and Inter can send Politano and Dalbert to Fiorentina to get Chiesa.
Well, I think one thing we can say is that, Conte's not having Politano, as it were. I mean,
No,
he gets asked about him quite a lot in his press conference, and it's always something. So I think it was Daniele Mari who always tweets out Conte's press conference quotes. He said that whenever Conte's asked about Politano in his press conference, I always get the feeling he's about to say, "Oh yeah, we have Politano in our squad, don't we? Oh yeah, he's there too." I mean, he says nice things, but maybe not with the kind of feeling that you'd expect from someone who loves Matteo Politano. Maybe, yeah. He doesn't.
I
Seem
like
to be...
Matteo Politano, but he doesn't suit. He doesn't suit
no.
Conte's football, and therefore he shouldn't be there. I think at Fiorentina, if they play a 4-3-3 or 4-3-2-1 under Spalletti or whoever takes over, or Gattuso, I think he'd be perfect there. So I think for his sake, I think that's a good thing if they were able to send him there, because I want Federico Chiesa. Right. I know Mo is sitting there over there boiling, but no, Ed, I want to hear your thoughts on the Viola game. Well, how do you expect the Viola to act given all the turbulence?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said, but the annoying thing about this team, it was what you were going back to earlier, is that actually they are really talented, and another guy who's having a good season is Castrovilli. Yeah, Benassi is a former guy of ours. He's actually, I believe, got 13 Serie A goals over the last 2 seasons. None this season, but 13 in the 2-1 previous. So the potential there to damage us is absolutely there, but I just don't see it coming together for Fiorentina right now. And especially, I don't know, like Montella's star really had to play when you consider those first 2 teams in Catania. Really look like he's going to be, if not the future of the kind of place, but certainly one who would play a major role in the future. And instead, I mean, he's been sort of the first time after not buying enough players, but you always got the impression that his team hit a wall. And I don't know. I think Conte's got his number as well.
I was going to say, I think Conte and Montella is a really unfavourable matchup for him, because there's such a chasm in intensity between the way that their teams play. Montella's always been accused of having sort of a pretty team which is a bit flaky and kind of wilts and doesn't push through when they need to, whereas Conte is full of he's not just about grit and determination, but Inter are in your faces all the time, and that's how his teams play. So it's not a I don't know what their numbers are in terms of when they've faced each other as coaches before, but I can't imagine Montella's had much success against him before, because I don't think his style of play will sort of adapts well to what Conte will offer from a tactical and a technical perspective on Sunday.
Well, that game you mentioned, the 4-2 game, that was under Montella, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it was. You're right. Yeah, so there you go. That is, I've just completely contradicted myself there. But yes,
the exception was the rule.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was one of the late magics from Giuseppe Rossi. I still cry when I think about him.
Yeah, talk about it. Such a beautiful, such a wonderful player. Too bad the injuries ruined his career. Right, let's predict. I think Inter win 3-1. I think Chiesa will score for them, and I think Brozovic will get one, and Lula will get one each. Mo?
Yeah, I think maybe if Lula or Lautaro alone score midweek, then maybe Lukaku will be due a goal. I think Inter are going to win by a clean sheet. I don't see Fiorentina scoring against us, so I think 2-0 Lukaku, and let's give Valero or Vecino a goal. One of the ex-Fiorentini.
Ooh. Will?
Yeah, I think Vecino will score. I think we'll win 2-1. Lukaku and Vecino will score, and maybe, I don't know, Pulgar or Milenkovic for Fiorentina. Pulgar is a penalty.
For
He's
sure.
good from the sport.
He does not miss penalties.
I think Fiorentina will score. I don't think this will be an easy game. Like I know they've lost 4 in a row, but this is Fiorentina Inter is always a bit of a game where you look at it and you think, I'm not going to enjoy this because they're one of those teams that are below Inter in terms of quality, and therefore they're a team that you're expected to beat. But they're one of those sort of upper middle class teams in Serie A that away from home can be very, very dodgy if you catch them on the wrong day. So, but I do think that we will. I do think we'll win this match.
On the flip side, though, how happy would the Friuli be if Juve were kept from being the top of the table?
Well, this is interesting because, of course, the return match for Inter Fiorentina will be will be match day 35. So can you imagine if Inter are going for the league then, and they need to beat Fiorentina to deny Juventus the league? I wonder what kind of performance we'll get then from Fiorentina. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Biscotto.
Nima, I've still got to give you my Fiorentina results, and I think
indeed. Sorry, indeed.
My bad. Inter Milan, I think will eke out a marginal win. It'll be a 1-0, either Lula. I know it'll be one of the two Lulas, and basically, the problem there is that I think we're going to be exhausted no matter what happens against Barcelona. These guys are going to be tired, and we're already, running out of players in midfield. It's going to be the kind of performance that Conte really relishes because he likes going, away from home and just, eking out these wins. And I've got to say one more thing, actually, we're discussing about the statistics. It turns out that as players and coaches, before Conte and Montella faced off in Europe as Chelsea and Milan coaches, as players or coaches, they played 15 games and Conte only lost 1. And that was the famous 4.
And it was that match.
Yeah. So that was it. Otherwise, 9 Conte wins and 5 draws. Surprised they didn't play more often. I imagine then that probably includes when one of them was coaching, but the other wasn't. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right. Let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and criticize someone or something in the world of football heavily, starting with the negativity. This week's Moggi, which will be presented by Mr. Eduardo Dalmonte.
Let's Moggi it up, baby. We all know who we're talking about. The Corriere dello Sport's front page. The Inter versus Roma matchup using Smalling and Lukaku and then calling it Black Friday.
And then doubling down and saying that they have been lynched, which I thought was just a fantastic touch of class by Zazzaroni.
That is extraordinary.
And the way he doubled down, putting up this... I think Fulvio said it best. He's turned Corriere dello Sport into a blog run by a teenager. That's exactly what he's done. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And this had ripple effects. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said it best when he was like, when he said, "Wow, really?" Like that was the predominant reaction everywhere around. And instead, Zazzaroni is pretending like he's Jesus dying on the cross, and he's Martin Luther King giving a speech about freedom of, I don't know, the I have seen the promised land and all that nonsense. I have a dream speech that he gives about freedom of speech and how they are not racist because it's not a secret that they're black. This was a celebration of diversity and the rest of that nonsense. I mean, anyone with half a brain cell in that situation, given that the article was very anti-racist and was very, this was a mess up. They wanted to make a racial pun. It blew up in their faces. A normal human being in that situation says, you know what? We messed up. We're sorry. We didn't mean anything by it. We apologize if anyone was offended. Finished. No. Instead, Zazzaroni does what Zazzaroni always does: turns it into a media drama about him, where he says, everyone in every political correctness this, political correctness that, and turns himself into the victim here. It's just pathetic. The less we speak about that man, the better.
It's really how I feel. How many years has he been basically inflicted on us on Sky? Like Sky Italy is actually evidence. It's the exception that proves the rule in some ways, because actually the footballers on it tend to be a lot better than the journalists. Condor aside, obviously, the footballers, Boban, Leonardo, are beautiful, eloquent, they're wonderful, sort of talkers. Well, obviously, Ronaldo's not on it anymore, but when he was, even Cambiasso is a good blog. A lot of these guys are really good. And the journalist, even Caressa, who acts like basically whenever he makes whenever he's talking.
Don't.
You can't say Caressa to Will, Ed. You can't say Caressa to Will.
Sport. Caressa, stick to commentary, bro. Anyway, what annoys me about Zazzaroni is it's all about the elderly white Caucasian, not about the two black dudes who actually came out and said, yeah, you know what, this is really stupid. No one cares about them. This is immediately about Zazzaroni and PC culture. And I can understand to a certain degree how people think, well, okay, was it racism or was it just like really sort of like insensitive, or you can debate that. What you could have done as the Corriere was start a debate and say, look, this isn't an easy thing. This isn't. I had to go ask you, Nima, like, what do you think about this? Because I honestly initially saw it and went, yeah, that's dumb, but it's not. I was trying to work out in my own head. Racism isn't a simple thing even to decipher and to work out, because it is centuries and centuries of pain. And one of the things about it is that all of this is like suppressed. I mean, I heard an Italian commenter the other day talk about Britain and France as if they were the former colonial powers, and I was like, Italy had colonies in Africa. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah, the linciaggio. It's like, what are you people playing at?
That is an appalling choice of words. Just gives you a scope of how far away from they are from being on this planet. Don't use that word when you're talking about a racism issue. Don't use it to defend yourself from accusations of racism. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, but the problem you've got here is that, like, it's you don't know who will see it and who will be enabled by a headline like that. You cannot run a newspaper like you cannot speak on the front page of a newspaper like you could talk to a friend in a bar. You may not. You shouldn't be saying that kind of stuff anyway in a bar, but you have such a responsibility not to say things like that, and just to do it just to look for the latest of his long line of cheap puns is really crass, and the reaction has almost made it worse, because if he'd come out and apologized and said, what, fair enough, I can see what I've done here, then his reputation would not have been as damaged as it is now. But as it is, he goes on the radio, says, I'm happy to have made this title. Racism is a serious thing. It's different, and then you get his friends sort of defending him and saying, there's nothing vulgar, and switching the attention onto to Milan and Roma, criticizing them for banning journalists from that paper, which obviously is a whole other matter. But there's nowhere to hide with this. And to give you a scope, to give you an idea of just how much this has blown up around the world and how many people have seen this,
CNN.
My mother asked me about this the other day. She knows nothing about Italian football, and she said before a couple of days ago, did you see that headline in Corriere dello Sport? She even knew the name of the paper.
Yeah,
this will remain for this paper. It's going to be very, very difficult to move on from this, particularly if they're not showing even the slightest ounce of contrition.
Agreed. Yeah, and Zazzaroni himself is quite a despicable human being. Let's remember that that when Sinisa Mihailovic had leukemia, when he discovered it, he told his friend of 20 years, Ivan Zazzaroni, who decided to make a quick buck and publish it in July, throwing his friendship with Sinisa for 20 years out the window to make just for selling a few more papers. This is the kind of man he is. This is the kind of man who was on Dancing with the Stars and made homophobic remarks. I mean, he's an absolute douchebag. So the less time we spend talking about him, the better it is. Let's move on to something much more comical. This week's Frog, which will be presented by Mr. Will Beckman.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
Yes, I struggled a bit this week. There wasn't anything particularly that stood out to me, but I did remember something that happened at the start of this week, and it is directly interrelated, in fact. So the Frog, I think, is going to be Diletta Leotta this week, who's a very popular figure, of course, for Italian football fans. She's the one that everyone likes to ogle over when she's presenting on DAZN. But she had a bit of a faux pas on Monday when she presented Samir Handanovic with his award for being named in the top 11 in Serie A for last season. This is the Gran Gala del Calcio, which was ingeniously scheduled for the same evening as the Ballon d'Or ceremony. Just fantastic forward planning yet again from Serie A. Well done for that. But she invited him onto the stage and was doing a little bit of an interview and said, this is your first time getting this award, isn't it? How does it feel? And Handanovic looked at her with a sort of withering stare and said, actually, this is my third award that I've picked up. I can see you're very well informed. And then there was a sort of bit of a sort of awkward moment, and then he sort of scuttled off. And the problem is, you know what Handanovic is like. He's not a sort of cuddly, cozy person. He sounds grumpy whatever mood he's in. So it came across as very deadpan.
And he looks so stern, doesn't he? Like he just looks at you with those eyes.
Especially in a suit as well. He looks like he's a bouncer or something.
Yeah, he does. He actually really does.
Actually, there is one other thing that I did find, which is also vaguely interrelated. It was quite funny. I saw that there was an under 15s match this week in Umbria, where a club were fined, I think, €150 for having insulted the referee, for having had the fans insult the referee, and the phrase that was deemed to have been so grievously offensive to provoke this fine was "Sei uno Juventino." So the disciplinary committee agree with us that is a deeply disgraceful and offensive thing to say to a referee.
That's brilliant. Right. Let's move on to something much more positive. This week's Moratti, which will be presented by Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and he surprises people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person of these qualities.
Yeah, so I think there's general consensus that the best thing that happened this week in the Intersphere is Cuadrado getting sent off yesterday, finally. And I would like to present the Moratti of the week to Michele, Fabri, the referee of the match between Lazio and Juve, for finally sending off that. I lose track. Are we swearing? Are we not swearing on this podcast?
No, we're not swearing. Stop it. Stop encouraging him, Will. You little winding him up over there. Stop it. Yeah, go on.
You swore a few minutes ago, Nima, have you know?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Did I?
Well, you called Zazzaroni something.
Well, I told him a despicable human being, yeah. But you
called him a douchebag.
Well, that's not swear, is it?
Wow. Well, look, if Zazzaroni is a douchebag, then Cuadrado is at least a shit, so...
Oh, God.
Thank you for sending him off, Fabri, and
And he should have been sent off. I thought Fabri did an excellent job. I think this criticism, Bonucci today, cringe.
Should have been sent off like at least 15 times in the last 3 or 4 seasons. Anyway, so yeah.
I find this Juventus reaction to Fabri absolutely pathetic, because if you look at what he got right, every decision he got right. When he didn't get it right, it was because he couldn't see what happened. And Massimiliano Irati, who clearly doesn't know how to look at a screen and interpret images that he's seeing, but he didn't help him. The video assistant referee, clue is in the title, assistant referee. And when you can't look at a screen and decipher what is going on and help the guy on the pitch, then you're too stupid to do the job. And I feel bad. I think I got to say, I think Calvarese and Fabri were excellent this round. I really thought they did well. Fabri has had some horror shows in the past, but he's really bounced back, and they're becoming two of the best in this league. And they're one of the best in the world right now. Those two. So. I wouldn't. I find this ridiculous. But then again, it was Bonucci, and he's not known for saying smart things, is he? So nice one. I think I agree. I think that's a nice Moratti. I think we criticize the referees a lot, and in all honesty, I think we should be fair and give them credit when they perform well. And I think both Calvarez and Fabri did that this week. Right. That's all we have time for this week. I would like to thank Mo.
Yeah, no, I thank you guys. I thank you for enabling my rants and giving me your time. So 3 points is always Forza Inter for 3 points.
And Ed, thanks again for coming on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm always here to denounce, racism and l'impalcatura razzista, as the Patrick called. I really enjoy that expression because it's like it's the kind of scaffolding on which one builds racism. So yeah, I was particularly struck by that. I spent a good 4 hours.
Agreed. And also Mr. Will Beckman. Guglielmo.
Thank you, grazie. Let's hope that in our next podcast we're discussing the draw for the last 16 of the Champions League, because that's next Monday. Let's hope that's relevant.
Amen.
Yeah, from your mouth to God's ears. Until next week, I'm your host Nima Tavallaey, wishing you a good week, 6 points, and sempre e solo Forza Inter.